Good evening, everybody. We are live today with another panel for the Good Lounge. My name is Barbara Lee, and I, if you do not know, am a board member, and I am so proud to be a part of this organization. Today, we are going to be talking about body dysmorphia, and this is something that is really close to my heart, so I'm excited to have two therapists here with us today, two experts in this field who are going to talk to us about different aspects of it, what it is, different triggers, causes, different ways you can help yourself overcome it. And most of all, if you have family members who are dealing with it, how you can help them with dealing with their triggers, interacting with them when they're suffering, whatever you need. So this is a bit of a controversial topic, so we're going to dive deep. You are open to ask whatever questions you need. We encourage them, so please type your questions and ask them. We're going to start off with our introductions, and I'm going to start with Brittany, and I'm reading this, so excuse me. Brittany is a behavioral therapist, an EDIT counselor, and EDIT means eating disorder intuitive therapy. She is also an anorexia survivor. She is the owner of Changing the Dialogue and founder of Girls with Goals, which is a company built on a mission to change the dialogue of body image and teaching individuals the importance of self-confidence. So everybody say, hey, Brittany. Thank you for joining us today. We also have Ray. Ray is a Black, queer, non-binary licensed master's level marriage and family therapist associate in the greater Houston, Texas area. Ray has years of experience volunteering with the queer and trans youth of Houston. They have been in mental health since 2017 and currently works full-time at their private practice, Equity Counseling Services. Ray's clinical interests are young queer professionals, teens, couples, and marginalized communities. In addition to clinical work, Ray enjoys training and educating in spaces that are open, centering Blackness and queerness. Is that it? Did I get everything?
Right. The only thing I want to change is that I'm not an expert. I don't consider myself an expert of anything.
Well, there's always room to learn more.
That's right.
But your experience has given you a certain level of expertise. Mm-hmm. And so that's why you are here today.
I'll take that, Barbara.
All right. So today we are going to change the dialogue. We are going to talk about how we see ourselves in relation to when you're suffering with this disease of body dysmorphia. So I guess to start it off, we need to go through a clinical definition of what body dysmorphia is. And I kind of have to laugh at this because I'm pulling up the definition, but what do we decide on Monday? We do not go to betterhelp.com for definition.
Right, we don't do
BetterHelp. So we are using the definition from the Mayo Clinic, and they both agreed this was a good definition. So their overview basically says that it is a mental health condition in which you can't stop thinking about one or more perceived defects or flaws in your appearance, a flaw that appears minor or can't be seen by others. But you may feel so embarrassed and ashamed and anxious that you may avoid many social situations. When you have body dysmorphic disorder, you intensely focus on your appearance and body image, repeatedly check in the mirror, grooming, or seeking reassurance, sometimes for many hours a day. Your perceived flaw and the repetitive behaviors cause you significant distress and impact your ability to function in your daily life. You may even seek out cosmetic procedures to fix your perceived flaw, but afterwards you may feel only a temporary satisfaction or a reduction in your distress, but often the anxiety returns and you may resume searching for other ways to fix the perceived flaw. Sound about right?
Sounds good to me.
Absolutely, yeah.
So when we discussed how we were going to address this clinical definition, Ray, when I was speaking to you about it, you said that you have dealt with some people who deal with this, but also something that you found relevant to this was gender dysmorphia.
Yeah.
So I want to give you a chance to talk about that real quick.
Yeah. So in my line of work, when y'all first called about body dysphoria, I was like, but I work with gender dysphoria a lot. And tied in that is body dysmorphia. and those significant things that people do not like about themselves because something about their body does not align with their gender. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Brittany, did you want to chime in on that? We said we were going to talk about that.
Yeah. So when we initially talked about this, you said that you wanted us to speak to you as if we were speaking to a client. And since I do work with a significant amount of adolescents, this is kind of how I would explain it to them in a definition that's easy to understand. Body dysmorphia is almost like your brain uses your eyes as a projector, right? So it takes those negative thoughts that you packed away in your little emotional suitcase and you've been carrying around, and it causes you to visualize those negative aspects about yourself. So it's like taking the weight of the negativity and it's altering the way you perceive yourself on a regular basis.
Okay, that makes sense. I was actually really glad that I was asked to moderate this because anybody who has heard any of the podcasts that I've interviewed on or seen, this is something that I deal with personally. And so for me, it started in high school. High school is like trauma city, right? It started in high school. And I remember a specific situation where, keep in mind, I'm 5'4". At the time, I weighed 125 pounds. So I was a size 3'4", pretty small. And I walked by a group of boys and one of them said, boop, boop, wide load coming through. And it just stuck. So from that point on, because the way I'm built, I'm big at the bottom. I always felt like I'm too big. I need to lose weight. I'm too big. No matter what size I was. Yeah. And so even now, people that I talk to, if I say something about like, I feel like I look like I'm X amount of pounds, or I feel, even because working in a fitness space, I feel like I am too muscular. I look manly. People are like, what are you talking about? What do you see? I wish you could see what I see. Mm-hmm. So, sometimes it's hard to relate, and some people may think of it as attention seeking. So we talked about, how do you differentiate between, is this body dysmorphia or is this somebody who has low self-esteem and is just looking for someone to constantly pick them up?
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about that first. Well, first of all, low self-esteem is kind of a component to body dysmorphia, right? It's like that initial step in creating what ends up being body dysmorphia. But really the key difference between self-esteem and body dysmorphia is action. And what I mean by that is low self-esteem is pretty overgeneralized, right? Like, I overall am dissatisfied with how I look. And that develops into a pattern of fixation. You start to pick standard flaws that you see as the worst thing possible or the worst thing about yourself, and you start fixating on those perceived aspects of yourself, right? So it could just be, I don't like my body now, but in 5-10 years, or not even a couple of years, without any sort of support or services, it's, I hate this one thing about myself, and I'm going to do whatever I can to change that one thing, because to me, it's the worst thing about me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I, as a piggyback off of what Brittany is saying, I think that's the main point to take away, is that self-esteem and body dysmorphia is not an or thing; it's an and. They go hand in hand. And the more the body dysmorphia, or if we're going to just take away terms and talk about what it is, the more you become fixated or distressed with a particular part of your body, even it can be your voice, right? Anything, it can cause your self-esteem to be lower, because with self-esteem, it's about that confidence and how you value yourself, right? And to be able to do that, you have to have a certain level of compassion for yourself and a certain level of care for yourself. Absolutely. And if that one thing about your body is not allowing you to be able to do those things, then of course your self-esteem won't be what it is. And right, not or, and you can love yourself and value yourself, but still see yourself as imperfect because of that one thing.
Yep.
So not liking a part of your body can cause you to not participate in certain areas of function. So I think what's important when we're talking about those differences is to recognize what the diagnostic manual, right, tells us, is that it has to be distressful to where someone won't, that is an area of their life, an area of function, right, is off. But to be culturally aware, right, to be saying each person is their own culture, we have to recognize that that area of function, that distress will be different for everybody. What do I mean? Let's say that someone struggles with their voice, right? So in my world, it might be someone that's a trans man, right? That might struggle that their voice is too soft. So doing public speaking or anything like that might cause them distress, have a panic attack, make them miss out on promotions, make them deviate on doing things because they don't like the way their voice sounds. But for someone else, they might say, that's just your voice. Like, why would that be distressful for you? For that person, it is distressful. So for them, they meet that criteria.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think the biggest thing, just from the definition too, is it says, even if they can physically change it, even after they do, they're still going to either find something else or still not be happy with that. Mm-hmm. You know, usually if you have low self-esteem, if you feel like I need to lose weight, once you lose the weight, you're good. Somebody who has body dysmorphia, it doesn't matter how small they get, they're still going to think they're big.
Right.
So another thing that we talked about, and this kind of goes in line with that, and this is also one of the questions we got, how do you all, y'all, not, I say that all the time, I've been taught, I'm learning the correctness, but how do y'all differentiate between body dysmorphia, say with, I guess it doesn't matter if someone thinks they're small or thinks they're big, but one of the questions was, what if someone who is big thinks they're small? So, you know, we kind of brought up, like, people have called it the Lizzo movement, where it's this body positivity, which is great. But of course, there are some people who look at it negatively and say, she's too big, she needs to put on clothes. Where is all this confidence coming from? So would you say that is kind of in the same field as body dysmorphia?
I think that's in the field of hate.
Okay.
I think this is a great place to talk about social construction.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Simply put, everything that we know, everything that we do, everything that we believe, it happens, and we have these values because, one, someone showed us that it's possible to have these values. And two, someone showed us because a group of people, a community, whatever you want to call it, got together and said, this is the best way we want this to go. And that goes for everything. That goes for what is for a boy, what is for a girl, what is nutrition, what is unhealthy, what kind of cars should we drive, what's the best jobs, how we should live our lives, who should get married, whatever you want to, what race is, right? What religion is, what religion is better. All of those are social constructs. Anything that you can think about is socially constructed. Which liquor is better than what, right? You know, when is the appropriate time to drink, right? All of that is a social construct. So, because a good point to pivot to that is, most of us, we don't give each other compassion for our own experiences. All of us we judge every experience and we move off of every experience based off of our previous experiences, right? A lot of words to say. We expect for everybody to move like we move because of our experiences, but we don't know someone else's experience. So that person that's saying, oh, something is wrong with them because they're fat and they think they're skinny. Who told you what fat is and what skinny is? And why does this person who might be at a heavier weight have to go with what you're thinking? And who's to say that they think they're skinny? Why is it not they just confident in who they are?
Right. They've accepted it and they love it. Yeah.
I think you made a great point, Ray. And that really is in the field of hate, right? And low self-esteem for the people that are assuming that, these people think that they're small. A lot of us grew up in like a world where like heroin chic was the way to go. And a lot of us spent all this time trying to shrink ourselves to the smallest portion that we could ever be, right? Because we were told it's a social construct that this is the best, this is the standard of beauty, this is what we're supposed to look like. And anybody that didn't look like that, you weren't it.
Right.
And people even now, right, who grew up in that era of those thin, absolutely skin people, haven't moved past that, right? In our minds, like, life is changing, right? The standard of beauty is changing, and people are seeing all types of weights and sizes and genders as beautiful. But people are stuck in an era where they believe that you have to be small to be considered beautiful. And that can be hard to let go. And it relates to personal experiences that you're holding on to, right? That sounds like an emotional thing that you've packed in your suitcase that you're still struggling with.
Right. And of course, now in the world of social media, how much harder is it, especially for people who are suffering, whether it's eating disorders, whether it's body dysmorphia, whether it is any kind of trauma that they now have mental health issues dealing with. You go on social media and you'll find half the world cheering you on and saying, this is great. And, you're a survivor, keep pushing. And then you'll have the other half saying, there's nothing wrong with you. Suck it up, buttercup. Put your big girl panties on.
Their trauma speaking, right?
Right. So we had one of the questions, and I think I'm glad that I have both of y'all on this panel to ask this question. Do you think this is more common in men or women? Because I do feel like it's a lot of women speak on it. Men don't really speak on it. And I've seen and heard men speak on it because I'm in the fitness industry, especially like in bodybuilding, when everything is about how they look. But do you think it's more prevalent in men or women, would you say?
Before I answer that question,
yes,
I think I need to acknowledge that question needs to be expanded.
Okay.
Because there's more than just men and women.
More than men and women. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm gonna rewrite your question a little bit.
That's fine.
And say, is it more
I'm reading from the audience.
Is it more prevalent in those who identify as men, those who identify as women, or those who may identify as something else?
Okay.
And the answer is no. No. It goes across all genders, all sexes, all race, all creed, every walk of life. There's no different than the other. However, you could probably find more people who identify as women or as other who is more open to talk about it directly.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
I think that's a great answer. Also, something to kind of circle back to, and you referenced bodybuilding, is that muscle dysmorphia and body dysmorphia are actually two separate things, right? A lot of times in bodybuilding, you find muscle dysphoria, which is, the concept that you're never going to be big enough, right? Your muscles are never going to be enough. And that becomes an obsession. Whereas body dysmorphia has other fixations. But I agree with Ray in the sense that I think it's more prevalent in people who identify as women or other, who they're just more open to talking about it and sharing it. And that's why it might seem that it's more, it affects that community more. But really it affects everybody equally.
Okay, so I told you guys, I told y'all, I'm gonna get it together. I told y'all about my trigger, about the one moment I knew that I could look back on and say, this is when I felt like it affected me. So can you tell me about some possible triggers or causes that you may be able to help others think about and say, I did kind of have, this might be when mine started, or maybe this happened and I guess I could see a pattern that kind of created this problem for me as well.
Such a huge question.
It is. I know. So maybe we can kind of shrink it a little bit.
And the reason why I'm going to paint it as huge is because everyone's different.
Right.
But if it's just off the top of my head, it could be anything, right? So we talk about the social construction, and going back with your story earlier, Barbara, about the little knucklehead in school who teases you about your rump, your bottom side. It starts with family and things like that, right? Growing up, oh my God, you getting big. Oh my God, So don't think I'm being, I'm Black, grew up in Black families, so that's what's playing in my head. That's the voice, right? So, and I said all Black people sound like that, so y'all calm down. So, like those type of things. Oh, why your clothes so tight? You don't need to be wearing nothing like that. You too big to be wearing things like that, right? Or for boys, speak from your chest.
Say it with your chest.
Say it
with
with
your
your chest, right? Put some bass in your voice, right?
Yes.
Those type of things that get reiterated to someone to let them know that part of themselves, something is wrong with them. And it's not just from people that we interact with, but advertisement, TV. What do we see, right? As Brittany talked about earlier, the standard was always a 0. You know, I remember the movie. I can't think of the name when they was like, "I'm hungry," and they said, "You ate a cracker this week already," right? So those type of things play a role in how and what somebody can possibly, when someone have developed that distress. I think I got off topic a little bit, but to like move forward with that question, anytime that someone has experienced something and they're ruminating and that I'm not enough or this is wrong with me, is plain, and it causes them to deter or miss out or reroute doing something in their life that they really want to do or something they should be experiencing, boom.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to note that it's not usually just one trigger, right? It's usually a combination of a few things. It's usually environmental and biological and psychological, right? There's a lot that goes into what could potentially be a cause for body dysmorphia. But a lot of this comes from these experiences that we all can relate to that have made such an impact on our brains that tell us that we're not worthy because this person did this to us or this person said this to us, right? It's a lifelong journey of carrying all those thoughts with you that kind of cause this problem, this issue, this concern that you have with yourself.
And I think it's also important, especially Brittany, since you said you work with young girls, to point out that this can happen at any age. So it can start young, it can even start older. It's not just like if it didn't happen to you in high school, then it really didn't happen or anything like that.
Well, and there's a couple of factors right there that, the most common age for like a body dysmorphia diagnosis is 13 years old, right? And if you're looking at, I do have a background in eating disorders and, my own personal experience with anorexia, but right now, the most common age for a child to start their first diet is 10 years old. Like girls at 10 years old, well, not just girls, but I apologize, right? Children at 10 years old.
Yeah, the little humans.
Humans are at 10 years old are researching diets and already trying to figure out how to alter their body. We're very much facilitating a culture where the cases of body dysmorphia are going to go through the roof because of the type of culture that we're facilitating right now.
Yeah, that's the tough part of it, because I remember as a young girl, like you said, my grandmother would take us to go get a snowball, a little icy, and I would save all my straws and cut the tips off and glue them to my nails because I felt like it was prettier as a girl to have fingernails, and I used to bite mine. So I would glue these little plastic tips, and at 11 years old, I needed to shave because everybody else is shaving and people are going to talk about me if I'm not doing it. My grandmother just said, no. And she said, you know what? If you want to shave, I'm going to buy you a wax kit. So she said, you're going to suffer. You have to rip the hair off before I let you shave. And I did because I wanted to be socially accepted and not be called Bigfoot or Sasquatch or, just give them something else to talk about. So, it's not even a perceived just I'm big or I'm small. This gets so much deeper than that.
Absolutely. And like, isn't it crazy that you remember as a child that this is something that you were doing because you wanted to fit in so bad, right? I was probably 10 years old the first time that my mom made a comment about my weight, and she walked into a family party and was like, I cannot believe Brittany's already in a size 5 in pants. And at 10, I didn't know that was a big deal. I didn't even know that a size 5 mattered. I didn't even know that I was in women's sizes. But since then, I was like, man, if I were a size 5 now, I would be devastated.
And what's crazy, Brittany, is that most parents don't even see that. They won't even think of that. That's just because it's a fact, right? You are that, but they don't see that it affects the child in a different way than they're actually meaning for
absolutely.
And then the fact that you brought that up. So I just saw my son a few weeks ago. He's early 20s on his own, has his own kids. And I saw him and I hugged him. And first words out of my mouth were, you're skinny. What are you doing? And so I didn't even think about it at the time, like what that could do, because I guess in my head, like, I don't think people are going to be offended if I say they're skinny. They'll be offended if I say they're fat. They're not going to be offended. Like, some people want to be skinny, and that's okay. But so I said that to him, and he was like, Mom. And I was like, no, really, what's wrong with you? Are you eating? Are you stressed? And I just turned it into this, something must be wrong with you. It's a problem. So I'm probably going to call him and apologize now that we're talking about this, because I didn't even think, and I've dealt with it. Everybody has something to say about how I look. And then I turn around and project that on him, and I didn't even think about it. So it just goes to show how easy you can say something and not think about it, and it can do damage.
Right. And it shows the importance of teaching our kids to speak up when we say those things, right? Because we're still learning as parents.
Come on, Brittany, yes.
Right?
Right.
We're still learning as parents, and we're going to make mistakes. I mean, this is what I do. I work with girls that are my daughter's age, and there are still times I come home and I say things to my daughter like, man, she's going to hold on to that, and we have to have a talk about it. One of the only reasons I got help for my anorexia is because my daughter was in kindergarten maybe and was seeing me constantly weigh myself. I was like, at my smallest, I was probably like 105 pounds, and I'm 5'7". And she had talked about being fat and like seeing me weigh myself. And she had asked me like, what number means I'm fat?
Oh.
And that was such an eye-opening experience. And my husband said the most amazing thing. And it really just like came all together. Like, man, I'm doing damage to my kids because I'm allowing myself to live this way. Right. And so this whole conversation, just as a reminder, kids out there everywhere, right? Please tell your parents, because we may not even know that we're hurting you.
And to the parents, allow your kids to tell you.
Yes.
Being a good parent means that you have to recognize that you're not perfect, and be okay with apologizing. Be okay with your child coming up to you and say, you know, what you said hurt my feelings.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you got to be okay with that.
So let's talk about some long-term effects that suffering with body dysmorphia can have if you don't identify it, if you don't treat it. And with that, we want to also address how, if, this person's in a relationship or dealing with family members, friends, like how their circle can help them, but also if they feel like, I'm trying to help, I'm trying to be encouraging, I'm trying to say good things, and they're not receiving it, how can we talk to them to make them realize it's not about them, don't take it personal, and, maybe just give them some advice for what they can do to help someone suffering with it. So I guess that was kind of two parts. Let's talk about long-term effects if it's not treated. Number one.
Well, I think they both go hand in hand, right? Especially, I'm about relationships. And everything that we do is a relationship in some type of way, whether it's a relationship with our body, a relationship with our hobbies, a relationship with other people. Everything is a relationship. The long-term effects can differ, right? Like it all. It depends, right?
Yeah.
It depends. That's the famous psychologist term. It depends. But thinking about it from a relationship aspect, it can cause somebody to withdraw. Or it can cause someone who is constantly turning down invitations because of that distress to be seen as someone who doesn't care, to be seen as someone who just never wants to be involved, and may even give off the perception that they don't value the relationships with that person. In addition to that, when someone is suffering from a disdain for a part of their body, let's say if it's a sexual partner, right? Let's say someone doesn't like their stomach, and with the sexual partner, they don't want to take off their shirt, and the sexual partner is like pressuring them, like remove that garment instead of showing them care and compassion. That can cause friction in their relationship, and that's another negative experience that person has had, that they might not be open to another sexual experience anytime soon with that person. So it's another relationship that might be affected by that.
Yeah, that's a great response.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, were you finished talking?
Well, my brain kind of, that.
Yeah.
So I can come back.
He can chime in, and then he can come back.
Yeah. I definitely think like a major long-term effect is chronic depression, right? Mm-hmm. Like it causes you to withdraw. It makes you feel like you can't be socially accepted. It causes you to sever relationships that might actually be trying to help you but don't understand, right? When you have body dysmorphia, you don't always know how to communicate why you are the way you are, or why you feel the way you do about those things. So like loss of communication, chronic depression, there's a high suicide rate in people that have body dysmorphia because of that communication piece, right? They don't know how to communicate with the people they love. And as humans, we need that intimacy piece. We need that connection to other people, and going without that for a long period of time does a lot to somebody.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, no, I was just agreeing.
Yeah, and that intimate piece is so important, mm-hmm. right? We crave that as humans. And if you feel like you're unworthy just in general as a person because of these flaws, you're not going to allow yourself to be open to intimacy and those connections with people. Worthiness is such a big piece in body dysmorphia. Mm-hmm. You define all your self-worth based on your appearance. And you've been taught that. That's been socially mediated to you, that you're not worth anything unless you have looks that are appealing to other people. And having that conversation with yourself is impossible when you can't see past that.
Yeah. And I would take it a step further what Brittany's saying, right? Because remember earlier I gave the example that it can be your voice. Mm-hmm. So it can be some things that you can't even see, right? It could be whatever, right? It could be my left breast right now. My left breast is a different size than my right breast,
right?
Yeah. Or it, I was talking to a really good friend and colleague. He's a student in the MFT program. His name is Mason Chandler. Give me a shout out because we had a good conversation about it today, and we talked about how those who are socially constructed as male can often struggle with the size of their penis because of the rhetoric that is put out about how, what is actually above average size penis is supposed to be like the average penis, right? And then going back into that cultural aspect with that, we know that black men are often seen as sexual objects. You ask anybody, especially any queer person or a black queer person, gay person, LGBT person, however they identify, and I'm pretty sure someone's asked them about their BBC. Somebody asked them about their BBC, right? And that we know that men hold a lot of power. They, the power is in the penis, right? How many people can I, right? And I'm generalizing here. It's not saying everybody, but we're talking about the system, the normal, the larger system. And so things like that, you can't walk around every day and see somebody's penis, right? Unless it's gray sweatpants, but that's part of the problem, right? That's a part of the problem.
Right.
Well, y'all gray so we can see these prints, right? Not everybody walking around here printing. So things like that can cause someone to have distress about their body and those things like that. That was just a little add-on.
I think
right,
too,
things can change.
Right.
I think too, it causes people sometimes to either downplay certain parts of themselves, mm-hmm. and then other times to like almost do extra to draw attention to other stuff. So mm-hmm. somebody who comes across as attention seeking may actually be someone who is really insecure or suffering from body dysmorphia, or just feeling inadequate in some kind of way. So they're trying to do things to make themselves feel good. So what would you say would be some signs of someone who's actually suffering from body dysmorphia versus just someone seeking attention and compliments?
Can you tell the difference? I don't know.
I don't know. That's the question.
Yeah.
Because
I feel like constant reassurance seeking it's a symptom of body dysmorphia, right? I mean, and how can you tell the difference? It presents in so many different ways, and I think that, just assuming that somebody has body dysmorphia because they seek reassurance isn't ideal either. But,
yeah, I'm sorry, Brittany, I'm going to cut you off.
You're fine.
I'm not excited.
Go ahead.
I think that, because my internal red flags is going off here, and I think it's important to point out that it's not a good idea for anybody to tell anybody that they have body dysmorphia unless you are a licensed medical professional or mental health professional to have that conversation with somebody.
Absolutely.
Because what you don't want to happen is for somebody to say, oh, you asking for too many compliments about your booty. You got body dysmorphia. Go fix it, right?
You
don't want those type of things to happen. So, and I think the whole point of this conversation is to say, stop labeling people and be careful what labels you choose for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important to point that out when we're saying like, oh, what are some signs that somebody might be, right? Those signs should be to themselves. So so as my grandma would say, hit me out and hit me good. Okay.
Yeah.
Allow that person to express their distress for their body. Now you can be a compassionate person and be like, I've noticed that you ask about this a lot. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And be there and allow them. Now this is going into your support, right? Allow them to come to you and be comfortable enough to tell you, but don't push what you believe on that person.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when they do come to you and say, so like Brittany, you said that you are an anorexia survivor. Somebody, I don't know if you feel that you suffer from body dysmorphia, but someone who has suffered from some kind of eating disorder and now they have body dysmorphia. What kind of encouragement or, what do you suggest that people in that circle can say to do to help this person and encourage them? Because, it could be very easy to slip back into that eating disorder if they're constantly dealing with the negative self-talk.
Absolutely. And I feel like that's a really hard conversation to have with anybody, right? I mean, when I was like deep in the depths of my eating disorder, I wouldn't have accepted any communication with anybody. This is how I wanted to live. This is how I felt in control of my body. And even if somebody even came to me and said, I think you got this problem, I would have been like, well, that's on you. I don't think that's on me. Right. But I think the important factor in this is changing the way you speak to people. Mm-hmm. If you have somebody in your circle that's like, man, I cannot stand my thighs. They're so jiggly and, all these concerns, and they bring it up constantly. And this is an issue that keeps perpetuating. And you've told them 100 times, your thighs look great, right? It doesn't look great to them. Mm-hmm. So instead of telling them, I think your thighs look great, ask them what their thighs do for them, right? Mm-hmm. Like your thighs are strong. They carry you. They make it so that you're mobile, right? We need to get away from the actual face value of appearance. Mm-hmm. What does your body do for you? Right. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a way more effective way to communicate with somebody that's dealing with body dysmorphia or eating disorders or any sort of low self-esteem. Right. We're trying to move away from your worth being stuck on your appearance. Mm-hmm. Something I tell my girls in my program constantly is you need to thank your body because it's the only thing strong enough to carry the weight of your thoughts. And that your worth isn't based on how you look. It's about what you do for people, what you can do for yourself. And you really need to change that dialogue and that conversation to move away from that appearance factor.
Well, we kind of talked about that when I first had this discussion with you both, trying to figure out the outline and what we wanted to talk about, because that is what has been my biggest motivation in my competing. It's helped me not focus so much on what my body looks like and instead what it can do. Mm-hmm. Because I can pick apart all day. Like I literally almost ruined a dinner because I was mad at my pictures. Like I asked you to take a picture of me. Are you trying? Like, what is this? You don't see how ugly this is? You don't see, and it just pick apart. And I put my phone down. I said, you know what? I'm having a moment. So I've learned to recognize that, but it's because I know that it's there. So in a situation like that, where things are about to go really left because you're with somebody who's just so down on themselves, like crying, hyperventilating, panic attack in an episode, how can someone help them in that moment?
Oh, that's a good one. It's really hard. It's the hardest thing you're going to ever do. Mm-hmm. You ready for it? You ready? Really, really hard.
I got a feeling I know what you're going to say.
Show that person compassion.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need your sympathy. So I don't know if y'all have ever heard of Brene Brown. Mm-hmm. She was a professor at U of H and she studied shame and guilt. you don't know it, look up. And she has a video on YouTube where she explains the difference between empathy and sympathy, right? And a part of compassion is that empathy, that, you know what, I'm going to sit here with you, right? And find a way to connect with that person. You might not have a distress as significant as that person, but there's something in your life, something that you have not liked about your body that has caused you some distress or a dislike of something. So it's kind of like that. It's that time to say, yeah, I get it. I'm gonna sit here with you, and we're gonna talk about this. We're gonna work through this, right? What do you need? Oh, that's how you're feeling. Validate that person. They don't need to hear, oh, you look just fine. Oh, clear it up. Oh, ain't nothing wrong with you. Oh, we doing this again? That's not what they need. As someone that's a friend, so for me, I'm going to assume here, right? There's one thing a therapist should never do is assume, but I'm going to assume that when you call yourself a friend, that means that you're there to support that person.
Yeah.
And a part of supporting that person is showing them compassion, even when you don't really understand what they're going through.
Right.
But that's their journey. And as the friend, as the family, as whoever, whatever title you want to call yourself, it's your job to show that person compassion and empathy.
Absolutely.
And validation does not mean like if somebody, I don't like my thighs, they're so big. Well, yeah, your thighs are big, but
no, yeah,
right. That's not validation. That does not help. You love your big thighs anyway. Love your big nose. Love your no, that's not validation.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And it goes back, and it goes back to what Brittany was saying earlier about the thighs, right? If they're saying, I don't like my thighs, whatever, what do your thighs do for you, boo?
Right. Well, and that's the compassion is such a key response too, right? Got to have compassion yourself so you can help others and so you can be present with people, right? But, in order to see yourself differently, you have to speak to yourself differently. And no matter what your friends say, you can tell your friends all the day, I don't like this about myself, and they can say you're great. But guess what? You're not going to see it until you start believing that you are worthy of those things. So you need to give yourself compassionate responses too.
Yes. Yes.
So I did ask you both if you had some resources that you could suggest for anyone watching, if they're suffering, if they are in a relationship, any kind of relationship with someone who is suffering. What type of resources would you suggest for them to read, listen to, watch, whatever you have?
I'm a big component of allowing non-gendered conformed persons to lead the charge. There is no one, and of course I'm being dramatic here, but there's no one who has had to overcome to be comfortable in their skin than a trans person or a non-gender conformed individual, right? So with that being said, I recommend any and everybody get to know Alok, A-L-O-K. Google them, A-L-O-K. And I promise you, everything about them will pop up. That is a beautiful person with a beautiful soul. And the way that they can get a message across, magnifique. Also, it's a foundation called the Body Dysmorphic Disorder Foundation. I did a little scrolling, and they seem to be a good resource, especially with that support component.
Absolutely. I think the Body Dysmorphic Foundation is a great one too. For me, when I was looking for a resource, I really wanted something that not only was available to help the person suffering, but resources for families and resources not just for your spouse or your partner, but for your children. And the Peace of Mind Foundation is a great one. Since body dysmorphia is an anxiety disorder, it's also very closely related to OCD. There's a lot of key components that go into that. And the Peace of Mind Foundation is a great one because it offers, here's resources for therapists in your area that can help you. Here's communicating resources, just worksheets and pamphlets you can go through at home. This is how you help your children if they're dealing with it. This is for your children if your parent is dealing with it. Because obviously that's a relationship that's closely affected. You don't want to hurt your kids and your kids don't want to hurt you. How do we make this work? So Peace of Mind Foundation is a great resource. Definitely look it up.
Okay, we got about 15 minutes left, so I want to give you both time to answer questions. We did this one. Another question we got, actually, we have one from a viewer. Ooh. And I think we kind of touched on this when we were talking about the difference between self-esteem issues and body dysmorphia. Someone said, Lindsay, why worry about the difference? Treating everyone as if they have the potential is always key because we all have that potential. So I guess pretty much saying the same thing, like it doesn't matter if it is body dysmorphia or low self-esteem, anybody has the potential to be suffering with something and needs help. So it doesn't matter. I guess the answer there. We should not be worried, Lindsay. That's your answer. And I think you both said that earlier.
Yeah, just like Ray said, it's not our business to label anybody.
Yes.
And even, I mean, there's people everywhere that are going to judge you, right? Sitting on your social media, like she's posting all these videos of her. She must got a problem, or she's attention seeking. Like that's coming from a place of their own low self-esteem and their problem, right? Mm-hmm. It's not our job to differentiate.
And I think what Lindsay was saying there is just show everybody compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Another question we had was, do you think that it is more of a mental health concern or an individual caring more about what they think others think of them?
Ooh. I mean,
go ahead, Brittany.
I would 100% say it's a mental health problem, right? I mean, even being concerned for what other people think of you is an anxiety problem. And that sort of anxiety is what creates a pattern of missing out.
Yes.
I can't go here because I'm afraid people are going to see me. I cannot count how many times I've been like, man, I don't want to go to the gym because I'm not feeling like my best self and people are going to see me this way, so I'm not going to go. That's an anxiety problem. I would 100% say that it's a mental health problem.
I'm going to say both.
Yeah.
Just like Brittany just said. We got to stop the or. It's always an and. Mm-hmm. Nothing is binary. Oh, that's the lesson for today. Nothing is binary. Nothing is binary.
Yeah, and again, with me personally knowing about it, I would agree. And I mean, that's just me, the little lay person. But just knowing what I felt, there has been times where I can't take a compliment. Somebody says something positive to me, I'm going to say something negative about it, like automatically. And I've been told I'm 41, I'll be 41 in March. I'm still doing it. Still saying, oh, your hair looks nice. Oh, I didn't comb it. I need a perm. Oh, your waist looks small. No, it's just the shirt. I'm bloated. Like, I can't just say, well, thank you, but so I don't ask for compliments. I'm getting better with accepting them, but I don't want attention. Because I think people see what I see. So I think if anybody says anything to me, it's going to be negative. So yes, I kind of care what people think because I don't want them to see what I see. But again, it's all in my head. So yes, it's mental. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And Barbara, something that you brought up was you can't take a compliment, which is also a social construct, right? We've been taught our whole lives that saying negative things about ourselves is more socially acceptable than being proud and confident and saying great things about ourselves. So you cannot take a compliment because you believe that it's not okay to just take a compliment, right? It's so much more than you just, you have these flaws and you're concerned about them. You physically cannot accept that positive compliment from them because you've been ingrained to believe that it's not acceptable to do so.
You got to be modest.
Right.
Yeah.
Another question we have from the audience. The big guy is his handle. He says, should you intervene when you have an overweight child? What's the trigger?
I have follow-up questions. I don't have an answer. I have a follow-up questions. Like, what do you mean by intervene?
Yeah.
What do you mean by overweight?
Well, this is also one of his comments earlier said that he was in Weight Watchers at 8.
Oh,
Weight Watchers.
That's where his question is coming from.
Okay.
And I'm saying I'm sorry if that's wrong.
Would you say that person?
There.
Yeah.
This person is asking this question.
Yeah. That goes back to what we talked about earlier about the things that we pick up from childhood, right? So to me, it's not about the weight, right? It's, is this child active? Is this child healthy? Is this
Mm-hmm.
child able to move, right? Do my 8-year-old have a problem climbing these three steps to get into the house? Does my child have a problem getting off the couch? I think that would be more of the way to look at that. However, I think it's important to not say that the parent who put that child in Weight Watchers is the problem. The system is the problem.
Yep.
The parent was taught that their child weight alone was a problem and they needed to do something about it. And so because society told that parent that, they did what was best, that they felt was best at the time, to try to get that child into line with social norms. Because let's not act like social pressure goes away once you turn 18.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right. And in my line of work, working with a lot of parents, a lot of the actions that they do comes from them not wanting to be shamed by other parents and adults in the community.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to see it that way. What was the system telling the parents at that time that caused them to make that decision?
Oh yeah.
And I'm gonna assume again that all parents do the best that they can for their kids.
Right. But even then, what do you do with that when, like right now, if I go to the doctor and based on what is the norm, I'm overbeat. I'm obese.
Yeah.
So I'm overweight, but I can also do these things with my body. Can you?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's like you can't even just go by listening to what a medical professional says. Now, if they say your cholesterol is high, I can't see that.
Right.
You know, stuff like that, you have to pay attention. But if it's just somebody saying, oh, no, you're overweight based on this chart for this height and this age and whatever, you have to look at the big picture.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't even get me started on how outdated the BMI chart is. I have such a hard time with it. And Weight Watchers is a sore spot for me. But I think the important thing to think about when this person is referencing their child and when to intervene, right? Doctors create a lot of anxiety for parents in general. Like, man, my child's overweight, and you're going to go to the doctor, and you already know they're going to tell you your child's overweight. What are you feeding them? So that kind of creates a negative aspect about approaching that conversation with your child. So there needs
shame that comes from that conversation,
right? And then there needs to be two conversations. One with your medical professional that says, we're not comfortable talking about this. We're going to address it in a more positive manner, right? Please do not bring up my child's weight. We'll move past that. And another conversation with your child needs to happen. How do you feel, right? How does being this size make you feel? Do you think that you do struggle when you're trying to play? Do you think that you're struggling in these aspects of life? How do you mentally feel? And how can we address that in a healthy manner that's not so solely focused on you losing weight, right?
Yes.
And Brittany, key thing right there, even just by having those conversations early with your children, that helps them feel more comfortable later on talking and expressing it. So Ray, how you were saying, a lot of people who identify as male don't feel comfortable discussing it. If you're having this conversation with your son when he's 5, and then when he's 10, and then when he's 15, you're developing a pattern of telling him it's okay to express himself, even if it's not something that everybody else does.
Right. I mean, and as a parent, you always think you got time. You think that they'll be older when they have these conversations. That's not true. I have girls as young as 6 in my program right now that are writing pages and pages of negative thoughts about themselves. And their parent didn't know, because you assume that your child doesn't have these thoughts because they're young. But that's not true. So these open conversations with, where's your head at? How are you feeling? Do you like what you see in the mirror? Need to happen much younger than I think that any of us parents really knew.
Yeah. I want to add to that, right? Because we are mental health professionals here. If this person who experienced that at 8, if they find themselves struggling because of that experience, I would really encourage them to go talk to someone about that. Absolutely. Go talk to a therapist about that. Go flush that out and explore it.
Right. That's not a good experience to carry with you. That's packing in your suitcase, and that's impacting your life. It's seek somebody.
Yeah.
Well, we have about 5 minutes left, so we'll wait to see if any other questions come in. I do want to follow up and say that, again, I really appreciate you both for being on this panel. You have enlightened me a lot, and I hope see a lot of positive comments. So I feel like the audience got a lot of great advice. And again, just point out the whole purpose of what we're doing here is we want to be able to provide resources to people who maybe don't have the finances or maybe don't feel comfortable reaching out or don't even know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
We want the Good Lounge to be a place where people can come and say, I'm having an issue with how to budget and save money better. I don't know what a 401k is. So you have the financial aspect of it. Or like we're talking about body image, we're going to do a lot more stuff on health. We're also going to do, it's 3 pillars. So, you got to address it all: body, health, and I'm drawing a brain fart because I'm still trying to look at, we got more comments coming in. Great advice. Yes, financial, physical, and mental well-being. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to have these conversations, but at the end of the day, even though this was a tough conversation, I hope we made it somewhat entertaining. We want this to be fun. We call it edutainment.
Yeah,
so it's entertainment, education at the same time. Another thing I want to let everyone know that both of our experts, yes, I'm going to call you experts, have agreed that they will participate in a giveaway. So we do want to be able to give sessions with each of you. 2 people will win a session, 1 each, just to either use for yourselves if you need it, or if you know someone who's suffering, then you can share it with them. But we will do a giveaway drawing for that. And as always, we appreciate all donations. It is definitely going to a good cause. Thank you so much for being a part of this panel. We do have about 4 more minutes. So any other questions, comments, concerns, feedback?
Brittany, we talked about giving resources, but we didn't even tell people how to start looking for a therapist.
There you go.
So right off the bat, off the brain, right? A few things. Of course, I'm available to people in Texas, only in Texas. I do in person in the Cypress, right outside of Houston area. And I also do telehealth for anybody that lives in Texas. But Psychology Today is a good website. Therapy Den is a good website to be able to find great quality therapists. The National Queer Therapist Network, I think it's what it's called, is a good one, and Clinicians of Color.
Wow, some of those resources I haven't even heard of. That's wonderful. Ooh. Send me some notes. I want some notes. Yeah.
I got you. Yeah. I can do that. And that's all right.
Okay, we got some thank yous from the audience.
And thank them for being here.
I appreciate it. A few more minutes. Like I said, guys. What's that?
Just what a great way to create like an open place to have this discussion, right? I know Ray and I both said we were really nervous when we were getting ready to start, right? Because this is a hard to have conversation, and to know that there are other people that are trying to have this hard to have conversation this is a great place to do that.
And how can people reach each of you? What's your preferred
so you can reach me. My preferred method is on my Instagram. You can find me at changing.the.dialogue on Instagram. I do a lot of my resource there. You can find out about my Girls with Goals program and who I service and how that works. And I also work with adult women as well with my Changing the Dialogue itself. And my edit services are offered there. And you can also email me at changingthedialogue@gmail.com.
And Ray?
So if you want, my goal, my personal business goal for myself this year is to be more involved in social media, right? I think Janet was like, I see you haven't posted on your Instagram in a year, baby, listen. So if you just have general questions or you saw a topic you would like for me to post a video about, definitely DM me on my Instagram at Equity Counseling. I'm going to do better by being on there this year. Okay. If you're seeking therapy services or anything like that, you can definitely hit me up through the contact on my website, www.equitycounseling.com. You can always email me as well, Ray at Equity Counseling.
All right, guys. Cannot. I'm gonna work on it. Y'all gonna get me together. Anyway, everyone. All right, y'all. Thank you for being with us tonight. And I hope that this helps someone. It should. We will have this posted on our YouTube channel. So it will be able to be viewed after this is done. So like, comment, share, subscribe to thegoodlounge.org. And stay tuned. Next month, we will have, I believe it's in person. I'll have to double check. We're trying to do an event every month. So check out the YouTube channel. Check out Janet's Instagram, Janet P. And there will be more listed there for when the next event is. So that's all we have. Thank you, everybody. And enjoy the rest of your day, night, wherever you are. That's bad, isn't it? No?
Bye.
All right. Bye, guys.